say former President Obama never respected the Christian Bible when taking the oath of office, and he even avoided to mention God. And there are those who are almost mad that some form of preaching, worship in public places, in public institutions, and all the like.
Well, you started off with the idea that Obama didn't refer to the Bible as the God idea. So we'll just real fast go there, and that is that you have to understand that the politicians, especially today, more so than ever, they're actors. And they're basically given their role. You know, just like if you're to be an actor in a movie, you know, there's the screenwriters and the director. They give you the script, okay? So this is what we see, especially with Trump. There's no mistake as to what Trump's doing and how he acts and what he says. That's all rehearsed. That's the role every day. They go through a lot of planning to rehearse all these parts and to say things and do certain things a certain way to the public. And, you know, this is why, for the most part, Trump's not concerned because he's paid very well to do this. It's just an act, just like an actor in a movie, you know, played to be the good guy or the bad guy. It's all the same thing. They're just paid to play these roles. And so whether Obama agrees to the Bible or the God idea or whatever, that's the role that he plays. And he also played the role of, you know, a lot of people saw how courteous he was to people and his wife and all these things. Well, that's a role he plays. And what Trump is doing with his wife, etc. And, you know, there's many photographs and pictures showing the attitudes between him and his so-called wife. Well, these are roles they play. They play these roles because they know the public's watching, and so this creates a disturbance, you might say. Again, it's a psychological maneuver, all these things are. So, and the last part of your question there was what, Charles? What was the reference to, the second part of what you said there?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, the fact that some this like called devotional activities are being banned from public schools, and many people are crying foul that God is being pushed out of the children's lives. God is being pushed out of schools, and consequently, children will grow up to be heartless and godless. See? So there is this controversy whether this kind of activities should be carried out in schools. There are people who just want the schools to be neutral and no form of religion or no endorsement of any particular form of worship or religion should be done in schools. So it's I know it's a problem there in the United States.
Actually, there's no problem with any of it. It's a choice. People, they don't have to go to school. They don't have to take their children to school. They can get together and do homeschooling. So again, being creative. And all these particulars, you know, it's so funny that people cry foul with this or that, but people don't know what they want. They're just screaming something. So again, the God idea, it's actually the God idea is the problem. You know, so they're using these psychological maneuvers. They're doing these things, and then they create more restrictions. Oh, you can do this. You can pray in school. You can't pray in school, or you do this or that. Again, they know that it's a type of control for the masses, and they know people will get upset. They want this confrontation. They want this because then people come to them. You know, people complain about the school system. Why would you sit? I don't complain about the school system. I don't complain about anything. I basically show, in other words, if it's a reference that's needed as a comparison to what I'm promoting, and presenting, I will use that, but I have no complaints about any of it, even the chemtrails or whatever, because again, complaining doesn't do anything, all right? Then you're really taking on usually emotional attitudes. It's not about that, but yes, I don't want to see it. I don't want to be poisoned, but at the same time, I know that I can't stop these things, and it's not about the system, but, people can get together and do homeschooling or whatever, but of course, they'll make that against the law because they want to, funnel people into their ideas. But again, people have to step up for themselves or they don't. And so you don't want to sit there and keep complaining about the system, but at the same time, keep taking your child to the school. And then that's what you live for, is just complaining about the system that you keep agreeing to. You see, does that make sense? So at what point are you going to step up and just figure things out and stand real in a real position that does make sense? And so fortunately, we're here. And little by little, as people see us, it starts to, but still it's scary. It's always going to be scary here. There's always going to be danger and whatever, and this can happen and that can happen because this is how it is. And this is how it'll always be here. It's only going to get worse. And so these are the good old days right now that will be talked about in the future as it gets worse. Yeah, these are the good old days. Just like today we talk about the good old days. A lot of people want to go back to the 30s, 40s, 50s. Those were the good old days where you cruise the hamburger stand and you listen to rock and roll music and, hey, life was good. Everybody was happy in their la-la land. Yeah, well, today it's different. It's similar, but it's different. And the French fries aren't as good. We already know that, okay? So, but it's only going to get worse. And so at one point, will people step up? Well, again, we're doing our part to promote it as much as we can. And so, again, going over all these ideas that people have come to know, thinking that these ideas, the God idea, the love idea, and all these things, I really, in a way, don't even want to hear about it because I'm already doing what I'm doing anyhow. You can say, hey, where's the love from the birds? Every time, people can say, well, every time I go towards a bird, it flies away. Where's the love? Well, the birds actually demonstrate love by the fact that they don't destroy the natural environment that they're with, excuse me. That's a real demonstration, isn't it? Yes, it is. And people talk about it, but they sit and destroy everything and do stupid things and giggle about it. Yeah, where's the love? And then they say, well, we love each other. Does that make sense? Yeah, so again, people have the choice, Charles, especially with the educational system. Well, the educational system's created purposely to keep people unaware and in a routine, and eventually they wear a white coat with a stethoscope or whatever it is. They got a little badge, and they're official, and this is what they work for. It's like, well, now they got a great paying job, and to what? To help destroy the world. That's really what it is. And so this is where created the, hold on one second here, created the Universal University, and the idea of that to eventually bring that out to where, no, we won't imply these restrictions, but show people how to have a real education about what's going on here, and especially with their real awareness. So having fun creating these things that, aren't really, it's not the spiritual path, it's not the religion, it's not the politics, it's not even educational, standard education. It becomes its own position. We have our own unique position and our own references to this true reality. And as people see it and wake up to it, gee, it does make sense, and it takes a while to seep in. But for those that just step up and just do something, all of a sudden, yeah, it's like, whoa, what am I doing? But then all of a sudden they realize, hey, I'm okay. Yes, I'm actually okay. You see? So again, people want, again, it's the wanting ideas. People want this, people want that. They want freedom. They want equality. They want all these things. But guess what? It's not about the wanting. It's recognizing and deciding to do something. And, people little by little are doing that. And we have to, go along with the rules and regulations. We're playing that game. But at the same time, the personal judgment comes in. And we've already gone through that with OCC and stuff like that. The personal judgment is there. it's I like to think of it as see it as I try to figure ways how to trick people into being wonderful, and so and sometimes they do all of a sudden recognize it, and they say, "You tricked me," and I said, "Yes, I did. I tricked you." And so this is kind of how it is. The boys do this too. But it's not a brutal trick. It's one of to where brings the individual around to see what's going on, and still you're making the choice. I don't make the choice for people. I just continue on with what I do, and I always figured basically I do it by myself, and that's why there's very few of us here, because and I know people are struggling to see this reality, but at the same time they're taking the risk and doing something. And even if it's at the point of, well, it sounds good, Duane will stick around or whatever, well, at least you're doing it, and eventually you will recognize it more and more, but it does take a while. So at first you just got to take the risk. But if you keep agreeing to the systems and keep complaining about the systems, realistically, where are you? That's it. That's all you know. So if you keep going over what you already know, then that's all you'll know. So how is it that you take the risk to see more and recognize what else is possible? This is the part I like. I like stepping right into the unknown when there's nothing there, and all of a sudden it does show up. But you got to see it. And so this is where we're at, and the world is what it is. But again, it's easy to agree with what's taking place and the concerns of people in their personal life. Well, again, it's only going to get worse because they keep agreeing to the marketing ploy that's created to deceive them. And this is all deception. Anything from the social structure is basically, especially today, it's so saturated. Everything is subliminal in the movies, etc. Everywhere you look, there's subliminal things in the billboards and your cell phones, all subliminal. And if you don't recognize it, you don't. But at the same time, you learn to, figure it out creatively, or you don't. You don't. And it's not about thinking. It's about seeing and being real. And so that's the fun part. Yes, Charles, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jane, another question about the East, living in the East. Many people would like to know, is it an attitude or a practice or an affirmation? There are people who go to mountain retreats, caves, forests, conferences, holy places in order to get into say go into themselves or something like that, or go into the silence and commune with life. But with the new presentation, it seems intense, and taking the risk is all that matters. So can you expatiate on how to dwell in the ease, moment by moment?
Okay, first we're going to kind of go over what you just said here, and I'll say that what you mentioned in the beginning there, affirming things and all these things, and we can throw in positive thinking and all this stuff, and yes, these can be references, but really they're none of the above. It has nothing to do with that. Again, look at the sun shining. You can think whatever you want here. It can really sound good. It can really seem to work, and you can feel it. It's like, oh, I feel the vibrations and I'm with the flow and all these things. But, again, when you look at the sun shining, it has nothing to do with it, does it? Not at all. And the sun's been okay, and I've said this before, through the entire history of this planet. It's always been fine. It sincerely shines. But yet look at all the nonsense that goes on here. So again, all these things that you've mentioned, no, it's really, you mark the box that says none of the above. And in one of the Star Wars films we saw here recently, it was number 8 or 7 or whatever, there's it was humorous where Luke is saying, this lady wants to be the last Jedi, and she's making statements, and a couple times in the movie he says, every word in that sentence that you just said is wrong. You see, so again, it's not about right or wrong, but what I'm saying is that all those things you mentioned can be references. Everything in creation is a reference. Created ideas, situations you see, the natural environment, other people, their relationships. It's all a reference and a hint to the isness, but it's how you recognize it. So again, we solidify these ideas into something, and they even become businesses. You become life coaches, you become psychiatrists, you become teachers, you become politicians, doctors, whatever. We solidify these ideas into becoming something. And so again, we look at that aspect of, and it's fine. This is where Paul referred to, from being somebody, a beggar on the street, as an example. And this is not putting down anybody, because everybody is who they are. And it's not about the identity they have. And then all of a sudden, maybe you become a doctor. Well, you've elevated, you've expanded upon your state of consciousness. But keep in mind, that's just in creation, is what it is. And it can become a better platform for you, but it doesn't matter either way. To possibly as a hint and reference to see more in life. But again, you decide. So the beggar on the street, he's usually begging from people, isn't he? So he's wanting something from others. Where the doctor is performing things where he's doing it, he's helping others. Okay, this is an aspect. So you've kind of turned things around. So as you step into that role, so to speak, this is where you might say life backs you. So instead of being the beggar and looking to others and taking from others, you're providing something. Well, there's a step up from that, and that is that now that you know about the new you and the new presentation, especially the new you and the real connection, now you're providing something real for people. You see, you've decided to step up and provide something real. So that becomes even more beneficial. So yes, you can have your personal affirmations and positive thinking and feel good about yourself. Yeah, whatever you want. But guess what? When you let all that go and you're like the sun shining, you'll see that, you know what, you don't need any of that, and all those things are actually restrictions. Because even with positive thinking, because you're in creation, you have cause and effect. People are thinking that in creation that they can get away from effect. You cannot, because it's all set up, cause and effect. But through your real awareness, yes, you can supersede all of it. And it is that recognition. So these are sound good ideas, okay, like vitamin pills. But realistically, we don't need vitamin pills either. The only reason we need vitamin pills or any of these things that we're taking or supplements is because of the deficiency we've agreed upon in this world, and we have to deal with it. I'm there too. I have to deal with it, and it's okay, because it makes me more focused, makes me more indifferent to what is been created as restrictions, so that I can recognize and be more real with myself, which will supersede everything. Because once you stand completely in your real awareness, you know what? There are no restrictions with anything, even the physical body itself. But it takes a few minutes to do that. But yes, Charles, these things can be references, and some references are better than others. So I would say that I've created the best references around to the true reality, where everybody else has created references to what? Staying one-dimensional, and the gods of man to stay restricted. Look at where these references apply, because that's all they can be. But if you hold on to them as a reality, then what you've done is you've created conformity for yourself, self-conviction and conformity. But you feel good, you sound good in your little capsule, and that's about it, isn't it? And eventually you just grow old and you forget that you were ever here. So for a few minutes, it was cool, but it doesn't last long, does it? And in the meantime, you're really looking for agreement too, because you kind of check on yourself once in a while. It's like, am I okay? nobody's responding, so you ask others, in a subtle way, your relationships and whatever, and you even share the ideas that you have, and you kind of ask them. It's like, well, I see this and I see that. How do you see it? They're looking for the okay position, and we all do that with the personal self. I've done it too. We all do it. That's all okay. Whatever it takes to be okay. But the best part is becoming more aware with your real awareness, not just, putting together a sound good, nice and good state of consciousness with the personal self. There is really a big difference. Yes, Charles, thank you for asking.
Okay. I think my last comment is about living practically in the isness. Okay, since we cannot get the full spectrum of awareness at one go, and probably we hardly will. Can we not say awareness? We can say awareness actually expands, right? It expands. And we see people demonstrating this expansion and awareness in their daily lives, even if they don't know about the new presentation and the is. Okay, take for example the Cultural Revolution in this country where I am, China, which lasted I think 10 years, and it completely shut them out from the ever new flow of life, and it pushed them back almost 100 years back. But later they realized that living in the past and clutching to tradition and a faded glory was taking them nowhere, and so they abandoned it in favor of what is real or what is relevant, and they have experienced what I'm calling in quotes phenomenal growth. So I can call this living in the East practically, but knowing nothing about the concept of the East. So what can Duane say about this?
Okay, that's the difference between, doing something in the personal state, but still not being aware of what else there is. In other words, it's just like children and animals. They demonstrate the isness, but they don't recognize it. That becomes the difference. There's a difference when you do recognize it. And also, I'm going to go back to the beginning of what you referred to, the unfoldment or growth or expansion. No, because it's an isness. By the very fact you're breathing the air around you, is the air expanding? No, it's a reference. The air you're breathing is a reference to the isness. And like the sun shining, whatever you decide or think or whatever, is the sun shining, is it expanding? Is the light expanding? Is anything expanding? No, these are ideas and creation, and by the very fact that people still cling to these ideas like spiritual growth and whatever, etc., they're actually restricting themselves to ideas that really don't work, because it's an isness and it's endless. It's just like when you look out at the ocean, do you decide how big it is or whatever? No, it seems to be endless, because as you look at the horizon, all you see is the line of the ocean and the sky seems endless, and it's like that, and it is. It really is. In creation, no, it's not. It's encapsulated. But the reality of the real universe is, this is what's so cool. It is endless. So, I'm just going back to the first part here. And again, we constantly hear this. So this becomes the focus. Just look at it for a moment. This becomes the focus. It's like, when these spiritual paths, they market, like the corporation or any of them, they market spiritual unfoldment, spiritual growth, don't they? Well, realistically, there's no such thing. There really isn't. And so what they do is they get people to think and assume along these lines when actually they can be used as a reference, but when they're created as a reality, people become, like I said, encapsulated. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as expansion. In other words, if there were that with the true reality, with the real universes, we'd have to push our way there, wouldn't we? No, it's not that. It's in reverse, where you allow this reality to present itself and you see how endless it is. Well, in creation, you might say we have to make effort because of how the bodies are, the 5 bodies are. So there's effort to be made. That's in creation. Yes, that's where we collect knowledge and we become more aware in the personal sense. Okay, there is effort that is accumulated there. Going to school, working, doing whatever, there's effort. But in the real universes, because they're endless, no, there is no such thing as the unfoldment idea and whatever. This is what I like about what I see and recognize with this, and that is that I do not agree to any of these ideas because guess what? They don't work. And Paul basically just referred to consciousness all the time, and he hinted at a few times in the books, very few times, him and Rebazar, about the isness, but people weren't ready for that, so he basically stuck in the consciousness area, which is just in creation. It's what it is, and most people just didn't even get that. It's just way too much for them. And this is where he kind of created the wheel of Eck, and then around it was all the religions and whatever that had been created. They're just in creation. But he used something for people to refer to because he saw the world and how the world related to things. So he tried to create a relationship there. He created a relationship there that people could understand. This was the babysitting position, really, to babysit people to where they're followers and members and basically are told what to do because they needed that. Well, today it's not. And for people to, I don't see it that way, for people to step up and decide to be the risk taker. So, and this is how the boys are too. They present something. They don't do things for people, and they don't babysit people. And even Paul said this is not a social welfare program. Again, I say to people sometimes, we're not the Red Cross. You know, we're not here to relieve you of what you decide in your life. You must decide to relieve yourself of whatever and be able to recognize what we're doing because this is a very unique position. And again, most people won't recognize it. So all those references about growth and unfoldment and this and that, that's effort. Those are effort positions that deal with the personal and the creative consciousness within creation, have nothing to do with the real universes. This is an awesome isness. That's why I created the reference of UP, universal positioning. You don't have to project anywhere. You don't have to, decide something that's a restriction accordingly. So again, what they've done when they market these things, look at any of the spiritual paths. They market this idea. They've created these ideas, spiritual unfoldment as one, okay, or God loves you, or whatever they are. They have created them as absolutes. And that's an illusion because this is cause and effect creation, and there are no absolutes here. The only absolute there is the real universes that are endless. That's an absolute. But here, God knows everything. God is the all-knowing, whatever. They've convinced people that that's an absolute, and there's nothing beyond God. There's nothing more than the love of God and everything, and God will do it for you. He will show you the way. That's fine. That's a created absolute, and if you want to agree to it, then you've stuck yourself right in that idea, and that's it. That's all you see. And it's like you throw your awareness out. Well, you don't need your awareness because now you have this thought form that you live in, this absolute thought form that's agreed to, and you see the world as it is. And is the world getting better? It's getting worse. It doesn't work, does it? None of it works, but yet people still hang on to it, okay? Yeah, like a Tootsie Roll, thinking that they're going to float across the ocean. Well, it ain't going to work, but Tootsie Rolls are good. They do sound good, but it ain't going to work. And so slowly by slowly, through the process of these absolutes, these affirmations, etc., People are creating their own demise and agreeing to it because there's no such thing as any of it.